we are here to bring you everything and anything surrounding Porsche. I'm Mike.
I'm Aaron.
And this is Pcartalk.
Welcome to another episode of Pcartalk. We are on location at Matt Moreman's warehouse. We're hanging out. If you guys don't know who he is, Obsessed Garage, check him out on YouTube. You should know who he is. He's a very popular guy. He is very detail-oriented by nature. We are very lucky to have him on our show. We're thankful to be out here. We're close enough, Florida boys kind of helping each other out. And we're glad to have Matt on the show.
Well, glad to be on, guys. Thanks for I guess, hosting me at my place.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of an interesting setup. His is way better than ours, and we're kind of mobile, so we're going to be on both shows, so it's kind of interesting, interesting dynamic. We've never done this, so this will be fun.
Yeah. I was excited for you guys to come, and I hope I didn't embarrass myself on my lack of Porsche knowledge, so it'll be fun to chat. I know new school,
Yeah.
Asking me about the 991 configurator, I'm your man. Asking me about a 964, I don't know squat.
Yeah. No, it'll be great. Now, I think you have a very, very interesting story. I know you've told it on your YouTube channel, and you've talked about it, and that's where I've heard some of it too. And I think a lot of us are car guys, and we kind of make the natural progression, right? So and one of the ones that resonated with me is when you told the story about your Honda Civic Si, your Electron Blue. I was in love with that. When that car came out, I wanted one of those so bad.
Yeah. I love that thing.
Yeah. It is just I guess it was just period correct, right? It was a car for that time, and it couldn't have hit any better, right? When that car came out in 2000, it was perfect. It was all the JDM and all the street racing, and it had that perfect color to it. And, that story just kind of resonated with me because I was I never got one. I always wanted one.
Yeah.
And I was always fanboying over the guys who had them.
See, I always thought at the time I'd make, there was no other car I wanted. I thought the lines, if it were perfect, I would make excuses like, man, if this thing if it was rear-wheel drive and had a V8 in or something like that, it would be, that's the only car I would ever want.
Yeah.
Perfect,
right?
The
It could never be any better than that, until I, eventually sat in a BMW, and then I realized, oh, wait a second. They don't have to have a plastic dash and, very, very simple things. But the beauty of that car was so mechanical. The shift linkage was very mechanical feel. It was, although it was front wheel drive, it was, I thought it was lightning fast.
Yeah.
I thought it was great.
For the time, for what it was, it was a very light car, and it was a rev happy car. It was for that time. For a lot of the people that are maybe kind of young that are listening, there wasn't the horsepower war there is nowadays. And people were bragging about 700 horsepower and all that kind of that had good pep for back then.
Well, that car set the stage for me for the love of linear power. The love of I don't have a desire for massive low end torque. I find myself not enjoying an experience when that happens.
Well, you can't enjoy it to the fullest. That's the whole thing.
But then again, I have friends, and I'm sure we all do, and that grew up. Let's say you grew up with what's the Fox body Mustang or something.
Oh,
had big torque, low end torque, didn't rev out. Those guys would much prefer big horsepower, big torque, big high low end torque.
Absolutely.
But I just don't enjoy that. It's probably why I love my E92 M3 so much. And, where other people would get in and say there's no guts.
Yeah.
Because it has no low end torque. But I love that taking the car to red line, that experience of revving the car out, and that probably comes from the Honda. My start in Honda.
That roots of that. Yeah. I agree with that. With the cars being able to rev out, I'm the same way. I've had some really horsepower monster V8s in the past, and being able to compare those two worlds, I much prefer to rev the car out.
Yeah.
The song the car sings at the high end for me is what really gets it going for me. The momentum cars and the things like that. It's one of those things where it's just, I don't know, it's right, I guess is the best way to say it.
Yep. When you get in and it's just, oh, this is right. This is perfect. This is what I want to feel. And you're getting every bit of it out of it.
And I don't think either way is wrong.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
It's a preference thing, and you've seen a few of my videos. I tend to not pull any punches, and I just say it like I'm feeling.
I don't.
Yeah.
But it's very much my thought or my experience with something. I talk about this all the time. Of there's a difference between opinion and experience. I'm sharing my experience on things, and that doesn't mean that another experience is wrong. It's just a different experience, and so I have certain preferences, and and that's where the GT3 RS becomes the pinnacle of naturally aspirated, instant throttle response, rev the car out, amazingness.
Race car.
Yeah,
for the road.
Right. And I'm not racing.
No, I know, but I'm just saying it's like that. It's that motorsport feel, right? It's about you call it what you will, however you want to label it. And I have the same moniker as you do, and you feel about it is. I'm not a track guy. I'm not on the track, but I love the way that car sounds on the track and the things it can do. And knowing that it can do those things, even though I don't live on the track, makes me feel good about the car.
Yeah.
I like that.
It's just experience. It's that feel.
Yeah.
I have what I did when I came here is I hung a left out of my neighborhood instead of a right, and I just went around the loop.
Yeah.
And caused a little havoc.
Exactly.
And then I race in here because I think I'm going to get arrested. But to me, that's the headroom is there for me to do that responsibly at times.
I agree.
And that's my happy place.
Just a little enjoyment out of it.
But I have lots and lots of friends, and we know lots of people that would prefer to go 10/10ths on the track and improve their abilities.
Yep.
That's not my bag, but if the car can do that, I don't know, it makes me feel good about it.
It's a plus.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm the same way, and I think it's like knowing yourself, right? Like, and being honest with yourself. Like, I'm never going to be one of those guys. Like, that's cool. There's people that want to do it. There's no knock on it, but I know that there's not time in my life for that, and I don't have the enthusiasm to go live at a track to do that kind of stuff.
Mine is just fear.
Yeah.
It's just not fun. Like I thought my entire existence was, so this is probably around the acquisition of my S2000, which would have been a couple of cars after my Civic, and I thought the whole purpose of my life was to get to the point where I had two cars where I could be that weekend HPDE, the track guy, and I thought that was my existence. And for a little while, for a couple of years there, we all lived on the forums for a while, for a decade or so, so I lived vicariously through the forums, and I thought my entire existence, was to become that weekend, not racer. I never had any aspirations to race, but to go and do,
spend some track time.
Yeah, lots of performance driving, improve my skills and abilities. And I went the first time when I got my second car, and I hated it.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I see
and then I went back, and then I hated it even more. And then finally, I just looked at myself in the mirror and just stopped lying to myself. And said, look, I tried it.
Yeah.
I know
it's not you, bro.
Yeah. I want it to be me, but it's just not.
Yeah, it's not me, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I think maybe if I could go out there, I know this sounds really bad. If I could go out there and beat somebody else's stuff up, I guess I would feel less guilty about it. I
tried that too.
Yeah.
It still didn't work.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just too much of a pansy. That's what it is.
It is nerve-wracking. I mean, at the end of the day, because when you think of the potential to think the catastrophic things that can happen, it can go bad real fast.
Yep. Yeah.
And it has for some people, in the past. You see those Nürburgring videos where people try to go out there and be heroes, and then they end up putting the car in like a 36 roll.
Yep, you're not going to set world records. That's what they tell you all the time when you're out there in the ring.
And I've been in cars with guys that are legit, and I'm like, I don't want to do what you just did. Like, I don't want to be able to do that. Yeah. So, I'm cool. I'm cool with just shining with a microfiber diaper in my garage.
Yeah, exactly. So let's segue into that, Obsessed Garage. Those that don't know, let's educate them a little bit about how Obsessed Garage kind of came to be. We know your history a lot. I don't want to tell your story for you, but obviously, the short version, but you can fill in the blanks where you feel they're very important. That essentially, you were working on products and you were cleaning your own car and seeing things that you liked. And we talked a little bit about it while we were in the warehouse, and you were saying, how people were saying, I want that product. Can you lead me onto that product? And it kind of took you some time to kind of do that. How did all that just kind of fruition? Can you tell that story? You know, because you obviously can tell it way better than I can.
So the obsessed part is unfortunately real. Like I suffer from true medically diagnosed obsessive compulsive disorder. And so the way this all got started in 2014, I've probably always suffered from it, but it came to a head where I was having trouble functioning. Like I was having trouble like going to work and talking with people. And, my issue was I'm obsessed with the next 40 years of my life, your life, and everybody around me, and it cripples me.
Yeah.
And so the way that Obsessed Garage started, you know, it started as Matt Moreman on the car forums.
Yeah.
And my handle was Money2536, which I've had since I was like 17 on Club SI.
Yeah, I was gonna say
it was money because I wanted to be rich.
Yeah.
And 25 was my volleyball number, and 36 was for Wu-Tang 36 Channel.
There you go. That's awesome.
No joke. And so I've had that handle forever. And so
Wu-Tang for life.
and I'm the whitest whitey from northeastern Pennsylvania.
It doesn't matter what color. You can listen to Wu-Tang. I love Wu-Tang.
So when I wigged out, I was looking for some sort of outlet, some way to write and speak and just kind of get out of my head through recommendation, through therapy. And I was a typical, I'm an engineer by education and by background. And prior to this wigging out, I was in control. I knew everything.
Yeah.
I was better than you.
Yeah.
But I didn't, and I get in trouble for this all the time by saying that I thought I was better than you.
You're just being honest.
Well, people take that out of context.
Yeah.
I didn't like walk up to you and say, hey, you suck, I'm great.
Yeah.
I just thought it.
Yeah.
I get that.
And so I probably gave off that vibe to some extent, but I never spoke it. I never walked around. I'm a type C. I'm not a type A. I probably become more type A as I've developed this brand.
Yeah.
But I just didn't have the ability to let people in on things. And so through this whole idea of me going to therapy, I would have scoffed at, but I was so broken that I needed help.
Yeah.
I needed somebody to
You were kind of
enter
at your
into my
last resort type of situation.
And I was open to it and willing. And so I had this massive body of knowledge just from this obsession type.
Yeah.
Anything I'm interested in, I'm sure many of you that are listening can relate, anything that I have an interest in, I just chase. And it's fun to me.
Yeah, my wife says I have that problem.
My happy place is the 8:30 p.m. The kids are in bed. I'm sitting there with my laptop on my lap. I have like an NBA basketball game on that I'm kind of watching, and I'm searching for wheel studs for my M3.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, well, maybe there's a titanium version of that, and then I find videos where, well, titanium break,
exactly. Why do I not want titanium? Yeah,
right. And then I usually go to there's usually lots of zeros on the end of whatever I'm looking at. Then I come back down to reality and then find somewhere in the middle. Yeah. And I usually reach and stretch. And so my happy place is that obsessing and chasing the rabbit hole, almost to a fault. And so I've always done that by myself.
Yeah.
In my garage. By myself, nobody else, tell anybody else. In fact, I was in wealth management. You're kind of taught to not tell anybody who you really are. It's not said, but it's implied that there should be
that perception. There
should be Wall Street Matt, and then there can be regular Matt. You want to connect the regular, but you don't want anybody to really know.
Yeah.
So that's the interpretation I had. And so nobody really knew who I was because I thought I was better than you. I am an introvert naturally.
Yeah.
And I knew everything, or so I thought. And so this broken part made me go out and speak and write. And so I went on Renlist, which of course everybody listening to this podcast is familiar with. And I'd just gotten my 991.1, a 2014 Carrera S, X51. Oh, nice. So I wasted that, what is it, 17 grand or 19 grand? I don't even want to remember what it cost for 30 horsepower. And so I basically configured a GTS before the GTS came out, like a year later, which would have been $20,000 less.
Exactly, right.
And so I decided one way for me to let people in was to start journaling. There was a guy, his handle was SMATL in Atlanta, and he had like one of the very first 991 Carrera S's, and he started a journal. I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. And my initial reaction was, I can do better than that.
Of
Yeah.
course.
And so I said, seriously though, I went into it saying, man, that's a great idea. What I'll do is I'll just write and chronicle my adventure. I'll chronicle everything I do, and I'm going to do lots of stuff.
Yeah.
When I do a radar detector and hardwired, when I figure out how to deal with extra rusty brakes and brake dust, and I had developed a washing process because I was really into detailing, and so I just started sharing that whole process of what I was doing, the ownership experience of my car.
Nice.
And then later came to the realization it wasn't the car, it was the garage. Because most of the posts were about tools and cabinets and lights and floor and all the stuff in the garage, and the car just goes in it.
Yeah.
And so through me sharing on Renlist and also M3 Post, because I had a launch car F80 M3, which I hated. And then we can get into that, the fart machine. Sorry to all my F80 brothers. And so I had the Carrera S, the F80, and then shortly after that I got the Sapphire Blue GT3, and then that kind of where it took off. And then I met a young guy Adam LZ, and then we did some collaborations, and then that's when it really became. I was forced to create a brand or a name. So it was no longer Matt.
It's like
Moreman.
everybody's sitting around in a waiting room waiting for you to like make something, right? You're like, all right, you're gonna do something now.
Well, what happened was I was getting making videos and a lot of it detailing focused, and I would be I'm doing hour-long videos that people would tell me that's too long, don't do that. And so I'm breaking the rules because I wasn't doing it with an agenda.
Yeah.
We were talking about this before.
Yeah.
Getting the word
You're like, well, this is
out.
my way. It's
Right.
I don't care about what the
my
the
agenda
formula
was
is.
to get out of my head
Yeah.
and to maybe meet 2 or 3 people.
Exactly.
Just 2 or 3.
Yeah,
Exactly.
not 2 or 300,000, but 2 or 3.
Exactly. You're like, I was just trying to share this and do my thing, and then it kind of turned into this.
And so part of what frustrated me is there were so many people, and I was getting hammered on, you got to put links. And I'm like, I don't want to do that.
Oh, boy.
And so you got to share with us what you're using. And I said this out in the garage. People were kicking me in the head saying, bro, you're onto something. We want to know. Tell us.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I'm busy.
Exactly. I got stuff to do.
Right.
Exactly.
And then eventually I made, I was going to call it that'sjunk.com, but I couldn't get the URL. Out of the irony that pretty much everything I use is good, not junk.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
And my wife makes fun of me because I'd always say, someone would say, well, what do you think about that TV? I'd say, oh, that's junk. Or what do you think about that car? Oh, that's junk. And so I thought it ironic
That
to
would
call
be
it
funny.
That's junk.com. Well, good thing I couldn't get it. And so I got obsessgarage.com, and the reason why I built the website was just to put links to all
Have some place to put stuff.
the garden hose reel, the quick disconnect, the pressure washer, the detail spray, the clay bar, whatever the heck I was using. It was a place to organize all of that.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And so then, rest is history. And now I think we'll probably do $10 million in sales.
Yeah, I
this
was
year.
gonna say crushing at this point, which is insane.
It's just so humbling and so surreal and so amazing. And
It's crazy how it snowballs, though, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you start off like we talked about us like doing this organically, and like we've only been doing it 3 months, and it's kind of one of those things where we're drinking from a fire hose, right? We're learning as we go too, and we're trying not to do what has been done in the sense of like not trying to be different just to be different, but just kind of like you said earlier, like, well, we're doing it because we want to do it.
Well, the magic of the platform of us, we're literally in radio station grade here, and it didn't cost but a couple $1,000s for even as fancy as this crap is, and you don't even need this fancy of stuff.
Yeah.
And so we have a couple $1,000s, maybe $3,000 worth of equipment if you take out the computer, and we're able to reach whoever it is we're supposed to reach.
Yeah.
On in your case, a very, very niche.
Yeah.
You're even more niche than I am.
Yeah.
And you could have never done that before.
Absolutely.
Never, ever in a million years could have reached the people that you need to reach, and you probably we haven't even scratched the surface of who you could possibly who would actually enjoy reaching out to them.
That's a good point. Yeah, I mean, like, we're still so far in the infancy, we don't know where it's going to go, and we're just along for the ride. We want to keep doing it. Bringing people on like you that have the passion, and kind of like it's kind of turned into an indirect thing where the guests that we bring on, it's almost kind of a storytelling type of thing, right?
Yeah.
We're cataloging things we didn't start out to do that. We're telling people stories, and I think in the digital world that we're living in, I think it's kind of interesting to the fact that we can actually digitize and catalog things instead of like, back in the days, people used to scribe things, right? So now it's kind of like, this is just the more modern way to catalog people's stories. Yeah.
I struggle with, you hear people, the most common thing you hear people sitting around and they're frustrated in that we're losing social connectivity because of our phones and because of, computers and things like that. But I've experienced the complete opposite of that, and that I've experienced interconnectivity that I never otherwise would have without these platforms to reach other obsessed people. And I like to think, somebody told me this one time, I said, Matt, you're giving people permission to be obsessed. Like it's okay. It's okay to be this way.
That's a great thing that to think of it that way. To be honest with you, because I think we all like to piggyback on what you were saying earlier. I think we all share that in some degree of form, whatever your interest is on. Right?
Certainly, everybody has it, whether they know it or not. There's what they may not have discovered it. But shoot, you could be obsessed with laying on a couch.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's still something you're passionate about doing.
Exactly.
Your perfect couch, your perfect cushions.
Right.
Something exists. Color.
Netflix is amazing. Right.
Exactly. And you just and it's a great point. You haven't discovered it. Maybe you're a scheduler and everything always has to go according to plan. Every household has that person. It's like, we're going here at this time, and then we're going here, and then we're doing this, and then we're going to be home at this time, and we're going to do that. And like, well, that is obsessive behavior essentially, because you're controlling everything, and you want to control that. But I think I have that same thing with Porsche, and that's what
it's more. The obsession is probably a bad word because it has a negative connotation. It's passion.
Yeah.
It's an interest. It's an above average interest, and everybody has an above average interest in something.
I agree with that. Absolutely.
And social media allows us to gather.
Subculture into it.
Gather.
And I think like what you said with the whole digital thing, like we were talking to Mark Krabanic. He was on our show a couple episodes ago, and he was like saying how it shrunk the world. And that's a great thing, I think, because it's put a lot of us and, globally, internationally put us together where, let's say we didn't have any of these means, and like we wouldn't even got to talk to you, and you only live an hour and a half from us, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And like if you take away all of that and take away all that social media, there's not this networking, and we're not talking, and we're not having this conversation right now. So I think there's a lot of positives as opposed to people want to focus on the negatives of it, right?
Yeah. Like I said, we said earlier, I was talking about my experience. My experience has been extremely positive. And there's people that come at you, and there's, there are frustrating days and frustrating comments and things like that. But, I think what everyone can aspire to get to is to a point to where you're just walking around with a bubble, a force field around you, and things just bounce off of you like crazy, because most people don't mean it, and so a lot of the negative aspects of it, they don't mean. I think where people can get into trouble is when you're young and don't know how to handle it.
Yeah, when you fire back right away, maybe a knee-jerk reaction instead of like,
your bubble is not developed.
It's just emotion, and that's it. I gotta get it out, and then
What do you mean you hate me? I hate you too. I don't even know you. It's like,
and so to me, it's helped me socially. It's helped me reach an audience that I never could have, and it's changed my life. Completely changed my life, to the point where like I was literally walked out the door of my career that I never ever thought I would leave.
Yeah,
like never in a million years.
You're like, I'm set, I'm good, I'm going to be here, and then you're like, I'm out of here.
Yeah, it's the best thing that could have ever happened to me, and now I'm chasing passion every day. Like I get angry when I have to go to the bathroom, like I'm wasting time.
Wait a minute, I could be doing what now?
Yeah. Right,
I don't have time to eat. Like I need to be researching things right now.
Yeah,
it's not my calendar.
Can I just take a pill and not eat anything, and then that would just make food for me?
Yeah, it seriously is. I never understood workaholism until now. Now I could work all day every day because it's not work.
Yeah,
it's fun.
It really is. It's true. Like Aaron and I spend a lot of our, we're 9-to-5ers, but we spend a lot of our downtime doing this kind of stuff. Right? We're here on a weekend doing this. We're developing questions, and like I could do this forever, just talking to you and like talking about your passions and talking about our passions and car stuff, and like it's just so interesting, and it's so. I don't know, just fulfilling, I guess, is the best way, to sound selfish, I guess, in a way. It just kind of fills me up and it makes me feel good.
Yeah.
That's when you know you're onto something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool to learn the stories, like Mike said earlier. So the GT3 RS, is that your pinnacle? Are you gonna do anything else?
Yeah, this is the first time in my life I'm content. I'm sure you guys can relate to this, where there's a certain period, up until I was 38 years old, where there was just a constant turnover, constant pursuit, constant chase, like a void almost. And I've actually gone, I've gone to beyond where so I went to where I thought I needed to go. And now I've actually come back, and I'll explain myself. So I thought my existence was, I want to get all the cars that got away. So I wanted a 99 Civic Si, I wanted an S2000, I want to have E92 M3, I'd like to get an E46 M3 that I never got. So I wanted to be not a collector, but I wanted to have a few dozen cars, and I wanted to keep them. I wanted to stop turning it over, because the only reason I turned cars over was because I needed the money for the next one. I didn't have the money to, every time I got one, it was always a stretch. And I needed the money from the previous one to get to the next one.
Roll those dollars into the next one.
I needed to sell the parts in order to get parts for the new car, the
Absolutely.
modification.
Been there, done that.
And so my pursuit was always, I'm going to get successful, I'm going to make lots of money, and then I'll be able to buy all those cars that got away. And so I started that process. Just as little as a couple of years ago. So I had at one time I had a AP2 S2000 that I bought and put every part on it that I ever dreamt of, and I hated it. And then I bought a GT350, because I'd always thought Mustangs were cool, and I never thought I'd be a guy, but the GT350 was like what I thought the M3 should have been. So I had that, and then I had a Raptor. And then I had my Sapphire Blue 991.1 GT3.
Awesome
and
car.
then I had the Gen 1 Raptor, so I had 6 cars at once. And I was miserable. I was beholden, because I'm a detail guy. And so
I just thought about that. It was connecting the dots, and you're like, oh my god.
At certain times, 4 of the 6 were dirty, and
that must have been driving you nuts.
So much weight on me. And then
you're like, I'm literally losing sleep over this.
And one day I walked into my wash bay, and I couldn't even get in there. It's a lot like the thing is the garage now, where there's stuff everywhere, which drives me nutty. I had so many parts, like exhausts, headers, interior parts, intakes for multiple cars just laying there. And it was just so much weight for me that I'm like, I don't want this, because I need everything to be perfect. I want all the cars to be really dialed in, and it just wasn't fun to me. And so I'd gotten to the point where I had all these cars, and then so I'm glad I went there, because now I know. I know the goal isn't to have 12 cars or 14 cars. It's just not me. It's not my bag. I wouldn't be able to keep them all clean, and then I lose focus. I like to be able to really dig deep into one particular car. And so now,
it'd be tough to spread your time over a fleet like that, as opposed to like 3 or 4 cars.
And while I'm doing all that, I wanted a GT3 RS. I mean, that was the pinnacle. And so I still hadn't gotten there. And so what I decided to do was to unload, and just take a 2-3 steps back. And through that process, I'd come to the realization that, what cars I really wanted. And so what I really wanted was an E92 M3. And I wanted a GT3 RS. And I wanted whatever the latest version is. It's such a hard game to play, though.
It is.
To stay on the latest car. And so I'm really content. I'd love to get a .2 RS, but the .1s have softened so much, and so it would be almost $100,000 swing to get basically the same car.
Exactly.
And so I'm content. With what I have.
And then you'd be starting all over again as far as your process with the car, right? then there's that.
And that may be something that and what I've had a tendency to do the last 3 or 4 years is to create this chaos where I haven't enjoyed it as much as I should. And so I'm not even done with playing with that car. I have a couple more exhaust variants I want to play with, and I got to put I got different door handle pulls, the yellow to match the yellow stitching. Because it has gray in there, which doesn't. I don't really like yellow stitching, but it has it, so it has gray handles.
And so it's like, who spec this? What is going on here?
So I've got to pull that out and fix that, and so just little things that I want to kind of get set up and so why rush it? And so I'm looking at it as I'm content
Yeah.
for the first time in my life having. Now I have 4 cars.
Yeah.
But so this is going to be a Matt Moreman exposed video. I have somebody washing my wife's Raptor, so somebody takes care of the Raptor now, so I don't have.
So
to
you don't have to
stress
deal with it.
Yep.
Nice.
I have the 1M, which I'll be raffling off soon.
Yeah.
And I have the 2 cars, the GT3 RS and the E92 M3.
Yeah.
Those are my two cars.
Nice.
Yeah. Man, that's I can see, like, knowing what I know about you, how that probably drove you nuts to have all those cars and not having them perfect and just not having enough daylight to make them the way you wanted to make them.
It's just energy, it's just zapping my energy
Yeah.
and zapping my thoughts. And I'm not a perfectionist.
Mm-hmm.
I like things to be excellent, but I'm not a perfectionist. I mean, I always have a dirty car. I mean,
Yeah.
we're in Florida, for God's
Exactly.
sakes.
Yeah.
My GT3 is dirty, and I just washed it a few days
Yeah.
ago.
Guys that don't know, it doesn't matter. You can have a brand new car, you take it down the road, it's dirty.
Yep.
You'd have the assumption that Florida has nice weather, but we have more bugs than anywhere else in the world, it seems, and rain. It rains every day,
And it's humid, so if the car sits around, it gets a little wet, and then it just soaks up all the dirt on the road.
Right. So it's always dirty, and so you can't defeat that. What I'm trying to do is keep it nice, but to keep so many cars nice is just not realistic.
Yeah, that's taxing.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting, though, that you've made that progression, and I think that's a lot of, like, guys our age and, maybe have that desire. We're moving forward. It's like, oh, I got to chase these cars and I got to have all these cars. And then, it's interesting to say when you had them all that you were miserable. So it just shows you, a less is more type of situation. Focus on what you really want and maybe get those couple things. And you don't need to have a fleet to maybe make you happy.
Yeah, so here's because I'm advancing in age. I'm 39. I'm starting to reflect, and I've been forced to reflect because of my
39. I mean,
because,
we're not advanced that far.
Well, but I'm so afflicted that I'm forced to self-reflect a lot more now than I did when I was 29.
Yeah,
and so I think of it as you couldn't have told me, like, I couldn't go back and tell the 29-year-old version of me this. I wouldn't have listened. I wouldn't have believed
that's a good point. I'm the same way. It doesn't matter. Even if I was like some time machine, my own self showed up, almost like in Back to the Future where Biff comes back and talks to Biff.
Say no. Right.
It's like,
no.
I don't know what you're talking about, old man.
So, like, for instance, people ask me all the time because I've jokingly I disliked the F80 M3 so much, and the part of the reason why I'm so passionate about it is because I am such an M3 fanboy, and I'm in love with it. I'm just so disappointed and so, I don't want to say hurt,
Let down, maybe,
but let down by by that car, just the experience of it. And again, this is my experience. Well, many people love it. It's just not the car that I want. I think it's one of the best looking cars ever built. It's amazing looking, but it sounds weird and has some weird tendencies. It's very digital.
Yeah.
And I tend to prefer analog.
Exactly.
But I tend to prefer cushy analog.
Yeah.
Not so much air cooled analog, but,
Yeah.
but 991.1.2 analog.
Yeah, creature comforts and analog. Like the blend of the two.
And so people say to me, well, I want that car. Should I not get it? And I said, if you want it, doesn't matter what I say, you've got to get it.
Yeah.
But just go into it knowing, and don't beat yourself up like I did, that in 2 years after you've had it, you realize that it's not what you built it up to be. To just move on. Just sunk cost it. Sunk, this as a CPA, it's sunk cost, and move on.
Exactly. It is what it is. Like, you got to take the risk. You can't.
Part of the journey.
Exactly. It's an expense report at the end of the day.
So I tend to provide advice to people. Hey, I did 5 cars. It's not for me, but and here's why. And maybe you can learn from my experience. But there's a good chance that if that's something you've dreamt of, then I'm not steering you one way or another.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point too, because there's not a right or wrong way. We talked about that before. To like anything, if I think the important thing is to know yourself, right? I think that's what your path, my path, or Aaron's path is in the car world is not going to be the same blueprint as for somebody else. And it's not going to make, no matter who, you look up to or think that you want those cars, just go get them, drive them, be around people that have them, ride in them, do those things. But like, don't try to maybe blueprint it so much.
You know, it's crazy. Have you ever, either of you guys ever taken like the Myers-Briggs test?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I was an INTJ for my entire life.
Really?
So something you said just clicked in my
Triggered it,
brain.
yeah.
So I've always, and this was part of my better than, my arrogance, you know, before wigging out, I knew exactly who I was.
Yeah.
I knew to a T, and I was proud of that. I'm in the 2%. I'm an
Yeah.
INTJ. It's
like,
only
you know who I
2%
am?
of the general population are that
Yeah.
type of person.
Yeah.
Basically, the person that nobody likes.
Yeah.
There's a reason why there's only 2%.
Exactly. That's why there's
But
such a small demographic.
I just really enjoyed knowing who I was and being very, very self-aware and knowing exactly what I was about.
Yeah.
And then now I took a test and I was an ISTJ. And I'm like, oh, crap. And I took it 4 times.
Yeah.
And I'm like, shoot. And there was something clicked in my brain that I don't know who I am.
Yeah.
But I'm now enjoying the, you know, understanding that, you know, we all learn as time goes on and being okay. And this is where advanced in age helps you to realize these things that, you know, now I'm okay with the fact that I bought an F80 M3 and I wanted to love it and didn't love it. That doesn't mean I don't like you because you love it.
Exactly.
It just means that, because before I would have said, you're stupid. That car sucks.
Exactly.
Like, well,
You should have talked to me before. I would have told you not to buy the
the
thing.
car sucks. I mean, there's no way you like it. I don't believe you that you like it. You're lying to me.
Exactly. There's no way. What do you like about it? There's nothing to like about that.
Right, which is ridiculous, right? That's just my. Now it comes down to opinion. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so there's, I don't know, something that you said there clicked that the learning who you are instead of knowing who you are has been a huge transition for me personally. Yeah. And then I'm constantly learning who I am because I don't have a freaking clue.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest asset we all could do to ourselves. You're doing yourselves a disjustice, you know, or a disservice, I should say, to not learn the best that you can of who you are, as opposed to like thinking, you know, trying to fill your life with all these things that you think who you are. But like, does that car really make you happy? No, it doesn't. Well, then that's not you.
Yep.
And it's okay. Just move on, right?
Exactly.
Sell it, move on, and enjoy the acquisition of the next one.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's the hardest thing for a lot of car guys to do is to, you know, especially when you're, I call it your car guy progression. As you're progressing, you can't see past that progressive step, that next step. And so what I struggle with, I had all these great cars throughout all the years, and I never really enjoyed any of them because once I got the one, I was on to the next one.
Yep.
Yep.
I'm
Check
guilty of
box.
that. I'm guilty of that. Like, you know, and the minute you get something, you're already thinking about the next car. It's in your it's okay. I have possessed it now. Now it's mine. What's the next thing I can? And you haven't even dialed that car in yet, but you're thinking about the next car.
Yeah. So that's why, like, I missed the boat on the .2 RS because I just didn't care. I was content. And so it was a long roundabout way to say, I really like that car.
I'm in a happy place. But I got a question for you. In the video that recently came out that Matt released, he was driving in an air-cooled 964. So I know a lot of your cars are newer type cars, and this is going to tie into some of the things that you talked about earlier with obsessed stuff, and a video I saw a long time ago when you got your RS about how it wasn't brand new, and that really bothered you just because somebody had owned it prior to you, and you had to make it right. Do you think that has anything to do with maybe getting something older, or do you have interest in getting an air cooled, or can you elaborate a little bit about that?
I've shifted on that quite a bit, largely through the recent experience with I've been forced to because I went to the having 5 or 6 new cars to now I've realized I enjoy a certain vintage, if you will.
Yeah.
Style.
So like I enjoy the E92 M3, the V8 M3, and so I don't have a choice.
Yeah.
And so I've had to force myself to be accepting of the fact that I'm buying someone else's dirty laundry and not knowing the story behind it. And so even better, my M3 was crashed.
Oh, was it?
So it has a repainted front bumper, repainted hood, repainted fenders, repainted trunk, repainted rear bumper. And I tell you what, it's been a much better, much more enjoyable experience for me.
Nice.
Just because it's been used and you're not worried about it. You
right.
can't hurt it. It's
I could just go repaint it.
Yeah.
It's not that I don't care.
Yeah.
I do. But it's like
that barrier has been broken already for you, right?
It's a permission to mess with it without
for a long time, like let's say my first house,
Mm-hmm.
I bought that house. It was south of here in West Orlando, and I never wanted anybody to come over with kids because I didn't want to get the baseboards messed up. Now I did the baseboard, like I bought the baseboards. I bought a miter saw. I mitered them. I painted them. I filled the nails and all that stuff so I could fix it. But I couldn't see at the time that, okay, if some kid came and ran or kicked my baseboard,
Yeah.
I could maybe just putty it and repaint it.
And move on, yeah.
And it would be fine. And I'm not poor.
Yeah.
So I could just go to Home Depot and buy another baseboard.
Yeah.
So why am I so gosh darn wound tightly about this? Now, I'm still not going to encourage them to jack up my baseboard. So when I take my E92 M3 to the grocery store,
Yeah, exactly.
I park.
Still park way out.
Yeah, we
and
call
walk,
we
yeah.
You're
call
still going to try to mitigate as much as you can.
Yeah.
It's not like you're going to go and abuse it at
Right.
that point. But yeah.
But if something did happen, I'm not so distraught. And I think some of that comes with, excuse the crassness, with having the money to
Yeah.
actually own it and not be stretching so far.
I think that has a lot to do with it because if
Yeah.
you're pinching pennies to own it at the end of the day, you're
It
going to be
becomes
wound
so
even
important,
tighter,
yeah.
right? Like this is I'm spending every dollar I have on this. Don't touch it.
Yeah, it's owning you instead of you owning it.
That was a large portion of the progression of the first steps of life. And so, as you learn and as you figure things out, it becomes less important. And so, to answer your question, I'm okay with getting some stinky old thing and fixing it.
He's like, I'm okay with it. So what'd you think of the night? I know you gave your opinions about it. So do you ever see yourself maybe someday doing an air-cooled build or not even like just air-cooled, maybe just vintage build. Let's just like even broader. Like,
so I'm a little torn on this because like Obsessed Garage as a channel, like a YouTube channel, and is really just a glimpse into my life.
Mm-hmm.
Some people would probably say I'm lying, but I've literally not done one single video with the intent of I'm doing it to make a video. I made a video of something that I was doing.
Yeah.
Now, I've been fortunate in that there have been some justification to make certain videos, like I've been able to sell a product or I've been able to buy a car that I wouldn't have otherwise been able to justify buying because of the channel, but I would have done that anyway.
Yeah.
Take X amount of money and Y thing I'm going to buy.
Yeah, it's on
if
your
I
list.
have X, I'm going to get Y.
Exactly.
It was going to happen anyway.
Exactly.
And so the one thing I'm torn about on an air-cooled Porsche is I don't really want one.
Mm-hmm.
But I know it would be really fun to obsess about, and I knew it would be really fun to make videos about. I know it would be really fun to go from start to finish and do it in my style, at my, and I would do what I could do, but I would also be uncompromised. I'd ship the darn thing all over the country to find the guy who, guy who makes the best diff, the guy who paints the best, who paints the best, and maybe not the best, but really excellent, really good, and
to your specifications.
and I'd end up with a really, really nice car that I probably wouldn't want long term, but it would be something that I know I would really enjoy the experience.
Yeah.
The thing I'm tossing around in my brain is, would I only be doing that for the content?
Yeah.
And then would people know that?
Yeah.
So I'm not 100% sure. So this progression of me sitting in Brandon's car, I didn't want to drive it.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ride in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want the pressure of driving it anyway. You can't just replace that car.
Yeah.
I could buy another Focus ST if I needed to, but I'm not going to just go buy another car of that. Not to say I was going to wreck it, but who knows?
Yeah, you never know what's going to happen.
So I didn't want the pressure of that, and but sitting in it, it is something that I would certainly, and I know I would enjoy that process. I'm attempting to decide, and probably putting too much weight on this because I'm telling everybody to relax, but I'm attempting to decide, is it something I really, really want to do?
Yeah.
And I think it is, but I think it will be, I'm going to eventually build my garage at my house, and then I would have it as an ongoing project in my garage that would take several years to work through.
That'd be a fun exercise, though, right?
Like I'd get a rotisserie and just gut the thing.
I could see you enjoying that, like breaking it down and basically essentially making it new again for you. And like an air-cooled car or any vintage car, if you decided to do that too, it could warrant that, right? Because it's old enough to do that where you would do the rotation, the rotisserie on it to do all those things to say, well, it makes sense. The car's got a lot of miles on it. Like, let's rebuild the whole motor. Let's repaint it. Let's do all these things. I think what I know from you about you, you would really enjoy that process.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say I'm probably going to be better served? You know, I keep thinking do like an 80 SC or something. I'm probably going to be better suited doing something in the 90s, aren't I? With having
think so.
power steering,
I
air
think so.
conditioning.
As
things
close
think-
as you can get it.
Dude, we live in Florida.
Yeah,
like,
like AC.
like I think as old as you want to go is a 964.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From what I know about you, I don't think you want to go.
964s are 90, 91.
Yeah, 90, 91, 92, 93.
Yeah.
So I would stick it because it's just enough vintage, but it has modern amenities like you discussed. You said like you like creature comforts. You know that you can put a nice AC unit in it where you're not going to sweat your tail off. It's going to give you linear power that you described earlier, and all these things, and it's going to be yours at the end of the day. And it'll still have those creature comforts that, you know, power windows and locks and all that stuff. It's not going to be super wonky, and it's not going to be too rickety, and you know, it has enough crash safety in it where you're not going to get killed in it. Essentially,
then I'd retrofit a modern chassis if I could. You know, modern brakes.
Oh yeah,
I would do, you know, state of the art brakes and state of the art suspension.
Yeah, and that's all out there. You know, you can do all of that.
Yeah,
you know?
and have a really great, you know, engine built.
Yeah,
and then keep simple. I'm a big simple interior guy. Like,
Yeah.
I don't like navigation. I like a killer audio system, but I don't need like all kinds of fluff.
Yeah.
I want it to be simple,
Yeah.
comfortable.
That's your car, man.
yeah. So I probably will do one at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to try to do it as right as possible. But I would want to do a lot of it.
Yeah.
You know, like I would gut the car. I would break it down. I would probably strip it and sand it. And then I'd probably send it out to have body and paint done. And
It
then,
would be perfect.
yeah. And then I just, you know.
And then I could never bring mine around yours ever, because I'd just be like, all right. And I would just use the moniker that I've been using. I'm like, it's a driver. Mine's a driver. It's beat up. It's got paint chips. It's a driver, bro. Like, I drive it.
and then I'd sell it.
Yep.
And then who knows? Maybe I'd get into it and do it again. But see, that's the cool thing about this. Like this has been the big journey for me, is that I don't have life all figured out when I thought I did. And that's the fun. That's the magic. And so if I do head down that path, let's say I got halfway through and I said, this isn't for me.
Yeah.
I'll just punt.
Exactly.
Just punt and
Find something
Move
new.
on.
yeah, wait for a new possession.
Yeah.
Wait for the next
Taking
thing.
the plunge is the big thing, right? Like, in seeing, like, and like you talked about earlier, you did the track thing. You're like, this wasn't for me. You never know. You may uncover a whole nother side of passion that you may do that. And you're like, I really love this process. And you're like, you know what? All my focus is going on this now. Like, I want to rebuild vintage cars to the, you know, break them all the way down and build them all the way back up.
Yeah, who knows?
A new singer.
Yeah. So that's something that I'm you know, interested in. You know, the problem with that pursuit is that we're running out of cars.
Yeah,
That is
good
true.
point.
Quickly.
Yeah.
Day by day.
Yeah, every day it goes by. Essentially, somebody's snatching them up. One place is building them for one reason. People are storing them away, and there is a limited supply on that. That is a very, very good point. So,
And it'll be interesting to see also what happens with, you know, with these cars and with pricing. I mean, pricing has gotten you know, a little insane, but who knows? Maybe because there are becoming less of them, and they're getting crashed and getting chopped and getting, you know, so there are the very few unmolested ones, and then, you know, the ones that were molested, could you revert if you wanted to revert?
Yeah.
And so maybe the pricing will stay in the, you know, in the six figures and above on these cars that were once in the teens.
Yeah, right.
That's
so nuts to think about that, right? If you had a time machine, right?
But I mean, it is supply and demand.
Yeah.
You know, it is a
really
simple free market supply demand curve that we just talked about. They aren't making any more of them, and so they're disappearing. And as they disappear,
exactly, the demand goes up and the prices go up, right?
So then, so as I'm thinking about, you know, building something, you know, 964, 993, something like that, building something air cooled. Then I start thinking, well, why don't I just buy a darn, you know, a GT Touring, you know, 2018.
Yeah.
There you go.
Call it a day.
I saw the one you drove when you were on the Smokies, and you loved that one, right? The Miami Blue one.
Yeah. I'd love it. Then I start to think of the redundancy of it. You know, it's the same darn car, and that's where going back to something older. It's a very different car,
absolutely,
than what I've got.
Yeah.
And what I've got is what I want.
Yeah.
You know, and so I don't want to.
You got to repeat it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Well,
you know,
they share so much. It would be one of those things where like this doesn't make sense.
right. Unless you're just balling super hard.
Yeah, right. You're just like, I just want it all.
I'm taking the one
Yeah,
without the
right.
wing today.
Yeah. I'm going to have a Carrera S because I like the way that sounds, and then
Yeah.
I'm going to have
Yeah.
a Carrera T because that one's a little more raw, and then I'm going to have a GT4 and a
Exactly.
GT3 and a
Exactly.
GT3
Just
RS
walk
and a
in
touring.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you just pick one depending on the day.
Mhm.
I could be down with that if
Yeah.
I had somebody to wash them.
Yeah, right.
They were washing it to my standard.
standard.
I was gonna say
Exactly.
if you could train somebody to do
I
it
can do
just
it, yeah.
just the way you do it and then you test them and they pass the test, then
Yeah.
you can let go and you can be like, okay, I found my guy.
There you go, certified.
You know, that's been the biggest shift for me as a human personally is that, you know, now I have this business, you know, Obsessed Garage.
Mm-hmm.
Despite the fact that it's a YouTube channel, I'm kind of jerking around in my garage. It's become a business.
No, it's huge, man.
And I, again, I used to think I could do everything better than everybody. I can't. I can't do it now. And so now I spend a lot of my time focused on training somebody else to be good at a certain task.
Yeah.
And so I'm confident I could find some people that would do way better than I would at washing my own cars. So I started to think about it. I'm like, well, it'd be cool that like if I'm going to do a whole detailing series, I'll polish the hood and then voila,
Just go
the
ahead.
car's
Yeah.
done.
Yeah, very
Yeah,
TV.
walk away.
movie magic.
Nice.
The car is done.
Yeah, and I'll show you here's all the stuff because when I'm shooting a video series of me doing that, I'm only shooting certain parts of it, and then I got to turn the camera off and do the work.
Yeah, that's
Hours
true.
later.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
you're still doing it.
This is one of my secrets one of my goals to get to the point where I just polish the hood and walk away.
There you go.
Delegate it.
There you hear it first, guys. He's taking internships. You got to pass first before any type of dollars start rolling.
But it's been fun to find people that are passionate about a certain role in a business and then really focus on them and giving them the ability to giving them a leash.
Yeah.
So that's been a big shift through this whole learning process, or this whole self-discovery and humbling that happened to me. It's really changed my life. And the thing that I have to accredit it to is, I have a coach. I don't know if you've ever heard me talking about this, but I literally, like, my first employee was a coach.
Yeah.
They don't work for me, but I pay them, they consult. And that's been massive. So I'm a huge advocate of, if you're in any kind of business, to find somebody that can coach you. It's because you have so many blind spots.
Absolutely. You get that third party perspective of like, well, what are you guys doing on this front? And you're like, I haven't even thought about that. And they're like, why haven't you?
What do you mean?
Well, you need to develop a plan to start working on that then.
Yeah, that's been really, really powerful. I probably need a car coach, a coach that coaches me on what car to buy, so I won't make so many mistakes like I have.
Then you have the Jerry Seinfeld manager of your cars. Like you're like, no, we don't want this car. This isn't our car.
Yeah, this is a bad idea. Don't do it.
Yeah, talk you off the ledge. You're like, I know it looks sexy right now, but you do not want this car. And you're like, okay.
Are you sure I don't?
Yeah,
because I spent some time. I was actually just editing a video. I was at Jay Leno's garage, and we were doing.
I saw that.
We were I was editing the behind the scenes where Chris, who maintains the cars there, maintains the collection. He's just kind of giving us a tour from his perspective. And you just see the amount of work that goes into maintaining a massive collection like that.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah, there's a full.
I think about that all the time when I see Jay too, like all the behind the scenes guys. I was like, man, he has an army of guys working on these things.
Yeah, yeah, it's a big job and a big project, and and then each one is the interesting thing with him is that each car has like a spot. And then he's done all the obsession around it, which is cool.
That is really cool.
The memorabilia and stuff,
Yeah, that's super cool.
That's really, really neat to see, another fellow obsessed person.
I was just about to say the same thing. I was like, it's nice to see it on all different levels, right? You don't always have to have the monetary means to be obsessed about something, right? Like I've seen crazy Matchbox collections, and just because people love cars and they're like, look, I don't have the dollars to go buy a bunch of Porsches, but I've got every Porsche Matchbox that's ever existed, and whatever. And it's just cool to see that where people can channel that passion into something, whatever they want to do, and it's possible at any level.
That's what's been cool for me in the Porsche community, out of any car community, and I'm familiar and have been not involved, but I know any car guy knows other car guys. Like there's the Ferrari guys and the McLaren guys and of course the Porsche guys. And in general, I found that the Porsche guys are less about money and more about the passion for it. And they're all walks of life. Now I spend a lot of time with the upper echelon of Porsche money, because I always have a new one, and so I'm hanging out a lot with the guys that have the newest cars, and those guys are generally the most affluent. But the great thing about these people is that you'd never know it if you didn't see their $200,000 car. You'd never know. Yeah.
Exactly.
There's a certain personality, a certain type, I think, that's a Porsche guy.
I agree.
In general,
I agree with that, and you bring up a very good point that we can touch on for a little bit, because it goes back to the passion and the enthusiasm for the car, right? Like they're just in a position in life, whatever decisions they decided to make, business wise, whatever, where monetarily they can afford that car, but it doesn't designate who they are as a person, right? Just because of that car is there, it's not saying this is who I am, and stay away from me. They're the people that are just like, hey, I have the means, and I really want this, so I'm going to do it.
And there's something interesting about the fact that, a 911 is deeply flawed, right? It's all wrong, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Everything about it is wrong, and yet that makes it so right.
Yes.
And makes it, and it's inferior in many ways in comparison to other, other cars. And so there's almost like that broken wing type, that flaw that the cars have that I think maybe the people share.
I agree.
And that I think a lot of times tends to humble us all to some extent. And I think it's changed. The culture's changed a little bit because the cars have become really popular. The paint to sample cars and the whole buzz around them. And we end up with a lot of people that are short time, almost renters of a space in a 911, or especially a GT car.
Exactly.
But in general, I find that these cars end up in a place or with ownership of people that are really passionate about it.
Exactly.
It does seem that way.
Even if you have to end up with a GT car secondhand or something like you said, there's that buyer who's aspiring to own that car. Even if a broker ended up buying that car and they got the allocation or whatever ended up happening originally with that car will find its home with the person who's just like, this is my baby.
Yeah, and so I think what we're talking about is that there's a culture around being a Porsche enthusiast. There's a certain I mean, there's a lot of different walks of life, but there's a certain something about the culture around it. Whether it's vintage or it's air cooled or it's current, current GT cars. But I think that any culture, any subculture in the Porsche community I've been around I just get a different vibe than other types of cars.
Yeah,
other types of
exactly.
people.
I agree with that, and I think a lot of it, and this is just my personal opinion, and just from the circles we've traveled in and the events we've been to and things like that. And I don't think I can put my thumb on the exact reason, but one of the contributing factors I think to that is I think it's just the buyer's involvement in the sense of like everything that Porsche does, meaning like from race time and paying attention and that they're winning races, so it makes them relevant, and it makes the cars relevant, and they want to participate and they want to mingle with other people that share that same passion, and they want to go on drives, they want to go to the Smoky Mountains and drive their cars and spend time with other Porsche people and do all these things, and I think not that other groups of cars don't do that, but maybe just not as, I guess, often,
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to put your finger on what it is about.
Yeah, but there's something there, right? Like maybe it's just, I don't know. It's just the involvement.
I would almost say it's almost back to what you said earlier. They're giving a reason for you that you can be obsessed about that brand, and you can go as deep as you want to in it.
Yeah,
it's kind of the same thing. Their marketing second to none. I mean, they're good at that.
They are very good at
but
that.
As far as that, a Porsche person, I mean, it's just a friendly, welcoming, doesn't matter who you are.
So what do you think, does that make us sheep?
Maybe, I don't know. It could be, but, or maybe you had the Kool-Aid and you realize what it is. And one of the things I wanted to talk to you about with your progression in Porsche, and when you from your car lines and when you got into a Porsche, did you have that epiphany where you sat in a Porsche and you drove it and you're like, I get it. Like, I get why people like Porsches.
The first Porsche I sat in and drove was the one I bought, like that day.
There you go.
And but it was, I always wanted it, and luckily it lived up to what I thought it was going to be. And a lot of it was just circumstance, like having the ability to get in one. But then it's probably at some point in my early 20s, I'd realized that I really enjoy the newness of things. And so I had opportunities to go drive cars or be in cars or ride along with people in cars that are much, much nicer. But I've driven one Ferrari. I mean, I don't really have a Ferrari desire, but like, I don't, like, if you told me you could go drive a P1, like, I'm like, I don't really want, like, if I was going to aspire, or if I was going to get a P1, I would want it to be the first time. I know I'm a little odd in that
I
case.
know what you're saying.
But I think I don't know why. It was the progression that I got in my head somewhere, that I'd go from Honda to eventually get an M3, and then from M3 you'd get a 911. That was just always my thought process.
Yeah.
The 911 really didn't become something that I thought was a reality until I was in probably my mid-20s. So I wasn't like a kid growing up hardcore crushing on it. I was crushed on, I was crushing an M3.
Yeah.
So I thought I could get there.
Yeah.
I thought I could get a $50,000 car.
Yeah.
But a $100,000 car, $90,000 car just was never really
I was
realistic.
the same way. Like, I had an E46 when in my mid-20s, and I thought I'd made it because that was kind of my dream car. I was like, okay, I'm gonna work. I got out of college. I got a good job. I'm doing these things. Like, I'm gonna go buy an M3. I've always wanted an M3. I'm going to get an M3, and I got that car, and I love that car. And I was just like, I had made it. Like, I didn't have these, like, I don't have a Magnus Walker story of like, oh, I saw a Porsche when I was really young.
I was 8 years
Exactly.
old, and
Yeah. I don't have one of those stories, but in the back of my mind, I would see a Porsche, and you wouldn't see that many of them, but when I'd see one, it'd catch my eye. But I was kind of like you. I never understood Porsches. Like, I didn't even, if you asked me in my 20s what an air-cooled car was, I couldn't even tell you. I was like, I have no idea what that is. But I think as I matured and I got older and my car knowledge matured, I started to learn the engineering behind it. And even though I'm not an engineer by trade, I think I have mechanical engineering mind, and it started to really appeal to me. But it also, I was lusting after newer Porsches. I didn't think about older ones. And I got to the point where I was like, I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to afford one of these cars. Like, you
had a newer car?
Nope. I haven't had a newer Porsche.
So the 964 is how many Porsches have you had?
That one is my first one, actually. And I've owned that car almost 5 years now. But I've driven other ones, and that's where I think I'm 39 now. So like the first time I drove an air-cooled Porsche when I was like 30. So about 9 years ago, I drove a buddy of mine's 993. And it wasn't like, oh, go drive it and go have fun with it. He had a newer Porsche at the time, and he was taking it to the dealership, and he needed a ride home, and he didn't want to get the dealer loaner car. He's like, hey, follow me in my car. He had a Carrera S, and I followed him in the car. And, I still had my E46 at the time. I didn't think anything of it, and I drove it, and I got out of the car, and I'm no kidding. I was like, I get it.
Yeah, steering, your seating position, your vantage point, which we see out of the car. You have 50 years of them figuring out
sounds and smells, and I was like, dude, you ruined me. Like, that's what I told him. I was like, ruined me.
The power is irrelevant because when you put the package together, it's just. So I was 34 when I sat in my brand new $130,000 991.1 Carrera S that I'd stretched for. Making a, I don't know, $1,700-$1,800 a month payment or something like that.
Hefty.
And I traded my beloved E92 M3 that I didn't want to trade, and I drove the thing, and it was just it was like I'd made it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though I didn't really make it because I didn't really own
Yeah,
it.
exactly, right?
I'd made it. I could afford it.
Yeah.
But it was, it
It
was
was
one
like
of the
bliss,
things,
you know?
it was like if I wrote the check for it, I would have been hurting. So
Yeah.
let me just spread these payments out for 6 or 7
Exactly.
years. And but when I sat in the thing, it was all of the combination of all the above: the sound, the seating position, the steering feel. Nothing is best in class. Like nothing is not the
Agreed.
most powerful. It's not the best anything, but the combination of the soup, all the
Exactly,
ingredients,
right?
comes-
The gumbo.
yeah, it comes out to explain the driving experience that I'm hoping to have. And that was such a struggle for me to eliminate the manual transmission and to go to a
I was
PDKS.
going to ask about that.
That was something that I wasn't certain I could handle.
Yeah.
Because I'm not a fast driver, I'm not a ballsy driver,
Mm-hmm.
and so manual, I can't heel toe to save my life.
Yeah.
But I can drive a manual well.
Yeah.
I can downshift well and upshift well, and and manage the
Yeah.
clutch. And that to me, since I'm not out aggressively driving, it adds in involvement.
Yeah, your engagement's there, right?
Yeah, and so I wasn't certain that I was going to be okay with that when I made the transition. But I was enamored by the wing on the bright blue GT3.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And the thing that shocked me is that when I hadn't driven a GT3. I drove a 997 GT3, which was pretty harsh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a pretty harsh car. It was a .2.
Yeah.
But the clutch is crazy heavy, and and my buddy had it pretty race set up, so it was kind of a harsh ride.
So it's
Even
worse.
more punishing than it would
Yeah.
normally be.
and so the .1 appealed to me so much because everybody talk about how it's softer. I'm like, well, that's right up my alley. That sounds good. And so when I had the opportunity to get one, when they made the call, the Orlando made the call, hey, because they had the stop sale in 2014.
Yeah.
And when the stop sale happened, there were lots of cars that just started showing up from port or from wherever they were stopped.
Yeah.
And guys, a lot of people had backed out of them.
Yeah, I'm out of here. Yeah.
And so then you could buy it at sticker, and
Nice.
so the guy they called, one of the cars showed up, and it was spec'd like almost identically the way I would have done it. And I showed up and got it, and I pulled out of Porsche Orlando, and I'm driving home. And if you've never been in a PDK-S car, it's like sounds like it's broken. It's clicking and clanging and clunking.
I haven't been.
And I started out in just auto mode, and auto is the worst. Like you're in 7th gear to going 32 miles an hour.
Yeah, because it automatically does. Whoop, it just goes right.
Yeah,
up
it goes
to
ba 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 ba
7th
all the way up to 7th gear because they're trying to
Yeah.
do
Efficient,
fuel
it's gas
economy.
mileage,
Yeah.
exactly.
And in order to hit a certain 15 mpg,
Yeah.
so
Whatever.
they don't get
Whatever they're claiming, right?
And so I got on a thing, and I'm driving up the side. I almost turned around, and then my very first post on Renlist was, "Hey, is this thing supposed to sound like this?" Because I think mine might be broken.
Yeah, I think I got a broken one.
I still see those posts to this day, and I chuckle because I did the same thing. Now, when I got mine, there were like 100 of them. In the U.S.
Everybody's like, I don't know, man.
Yeah,
Maybe it is.
So
supposed
people
to
are like,
sound that.
yeah. There's no packing in the clutches or whatever. There's there's no insulation at the bottom of the car. Yeah, and so the beauty to me of PDKS is that I believe it's a true automated manual. It won't kick down.
Yeah.
Like a lot of cars, if you mash the gas, it'll kick down a gear automatically. It won't bounce it off the rev limiter.
Yeah, it's quick too. It's unbelievably quick.
That is cool, right?
Yeah.
You can pull the paddles, engage neutral. And then
That's super cool. I do like that.
in order to manage the clunk and clank and all of that, I've taught myself that it's second nature, that as I'm coming to a stoplight, I pull the paddles, engage neutral, and then when I'm stopped, then I
Just the
engage first.
manual mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I drive it. First of all, the auto mode is so bad that you'd never drive in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
you don't know
you're
it's
just
worth.
forced to drive in manual.
So it forces you to engage, essentially.
So
right?
I feel like I have not just as much, but close to it engagement. And plus, that car would be hard to handle. It's harder to handle in a manual.
I would imagine.
And I drove the manual, .2, and it is doable, but the car is clearly designed and suited for
yeah.
the PDK.
I was going to say that thing's probably an animal in manual.
Yeah, it's cool, and I, again, in a perfect world, I'd love to have it.
Yeah.
You know, I'd love to have a touring as my daily driver, and then have that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You know, have the PDKS, but again, that's, you know, now you got $300,000 or $350,000 worth of cars
Yeah.
that
Exactly.
you
Does
know,
it make sense?
that are the same,
Yeah,
the same darn car.
So, you know, rewinding a little bit, this is just kind of off the cuff question. So you got your Porsche, and now that you've owned some Porsches in your life, do you ever think there'll be a day in your life that you won't have one Porsche?
I hope not. You know,
Not if you have something to do with it, right?
I hope that I'm fortunate enough that, you know, I don't know, I wake up every morning and assume they're going to come take it all away from me. But,
Yeah. But I guess from a choice standpoint more, like you would never choose to not have one, correct?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Okay.
And I think that my goal would be to have an RS in the garage at all times for,
Yeah.
you know, forever.
I knew I liked you for a reason.
It's just, it's, I feel content.
Yeah.
You know, even if I didn't drive it for a couple of weeks, it just makes me smile. You know, it makes me feel happy to have it.
It looks, I mean, it looks
Good.
like it's going a gazillion miles an hour sitting still, which is one thing I love about, I mean, I love many things about it, but just, it's so pretty just looking at it, just sitting there.
Yeah, so I hope that, you know, I can be fortunate enough to have one, you know, forever. You know, have some version of it. I'd like to eventually be at a point where it didn't matter. I could just buy the new one, you know, but get the latest iteration.
That's get the new one. Yeah.
Yeah, and then, you know, someday I do aspire to be able to buy a .7 RS 4.0, you know,
Yeah.
a 97.2
Awesome
RS 4.0.
car. Yeah.
You're gonna have to pay $1 million to get one, but, you know.
Yeah, you got to pay up, but I mean, they're gorgeous. I mean, and it's just the engineering behind that thing is unreal.
That's another one. Like, I've never driven a 97 RS, but I don't care. I know I want it.
Oh yeah, yeah. I don't think
on the
I don't
list.
think you need to have to drive that car to know
No.
that you want that car or lust
Yeah.
after that car. Yeah, that's a special one.
Yeah, so I'd like to have one of those someday too, and then who knows, maybe whatever the new iteration would flip or turn. But yeah, I think a 997.2, you know, RS 4.0. You know, you're probably going to spend $500 to $750 today in today's dollars to get one.
Yep.
Easy.
So not in the cards, but who knows? Who's going to stop me?
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, no kidding.
I'm going to try.
You guys are crushing.
I'm going to try.
You guys, you might be there. Who knows? You might be there next year.
Well, one can dream.
Yeah. So, like, as far as your Porsche, I know, like, you go to the Smokies, right? You do that. You do that run. Is that something that you do, or is that something that you are just a part of? 'Cause-
No, I'm just a participant in it. I,
Okay.
you know, donate some products and some money and stuff like that to it for the cause. But it's, you know, this year there's two events. There's a spring event and a fall event. The fall is more just the original crew that came. So back in 2014, a couple of guys got together and they said, hey, we should do like a little thing up in the mountains. Let's just rent a bunch of rooms and we'll kind of go do some drives and we'll make it, you know, GT cars only.
Yeah.
And then they put it on rent list, and I think we had like 40 cars the first year. And then those same 40 came back in the fall. I actually didn't come back the first fall. It was good I didn't, because it was horrible weather that year.
Yeah.
So that was 2014, and then 15 there were 50 cars, and then the next year there were 60 cars, and now this year I think we're doing two different resorts, and there'll be 120-ish cars.
Whoa, that's a lot of cars.
Yeah, and you know, I think last year they raised $200,000 to $300,000 for the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation.
That's awesome.
And one of the original guys, his kids suffer from that, and so they were looking for a cause. And so, you know, I'm just one of the original 40 guys who
That's
came.
cool, though.
Yeah, and so it's life-changing type, you know, I have friends for life from that, you know, the Porsche community, the Porsche crowd. And, you know, there are guys that are extremely wealthy and you know, guys that, you know, like me who are, you know, who aren't. And we all get together and just share in the passion. So there's all, you know, it's not all walks of life, because you got to have $150,000 cars barrier to entry.
Most walks.
But everybody, you know, everybody feels like they, you know, there's just a belongingness to that.
Yeah, because it's the common denominator there is the car, right?
Yep.
At the end of the day. And that's why everybody's there. It's not what got you there. It's you're there for the cars.
Yeah, and it's so cool. You get a bunch of people together. You sit around at a table of people you never met before, and there's instant conversation. There's an instant camaraderie that you connect with, and that's what that event has become.
That's really cool. Yeah, we'll have to make our way up there when we get our GT car, right?
Yeah, that'll happen.
Yeah, I'm hunting after like I think first gen GT3 right now. Like,
well, 2014 has a 100,000-mile warranty now.
I know. How cool is that?
Yeah, because that's the E series. There's E, F, and G, right? So in 2014, and I believe it was the E, which didn't have DLC coded finger followers, and then or maybe it's the cam lobes that are DLC coded, because there are oiling issues on the 9A1.1 cars, which Porsche's kind of swept under the rug, and then they stepped up. And actually, the GT Smokies group had a lot to do with that. Renless and GT Smokies, they kind of banded together, met with Porsche, sat down and said, hey, here are our concerns. We have these cars, and some people are grenading engines. Yeah. And Porsche said, look, we understand that it's under-oiled, but we're going to stand behind this thing, and we think that it's fine. Yeah. And yes, we made some improvements. And so then the G came, the G version of it. I think they DLC coded the bearings, but there's still a flaw in the engine design. And then I think 2016 was the E or EF, then the G.
The G, yeah.
Yeah, and so 2016 is like my RS has like whatever the best version of that 9A1 variant. Because the big rub on the .1 cars is they have the same engine as a Cayman. Yeah. Or a Cayenne. Yeah. It's the 9A1 block, just sleeve board, and then has a different head and all that stuff. And then of course the .2 now has I don't know what this, but it has a dry sump or something like that. Yep. So the new car has a completely different oiling as the RSR inspired rebuilt engine. So that's the fear of buying a 14 because of you grenade the engine, and that's the other fear is Porsche's not very friendly to you modifying the car at all. So even doing exhaust and things like that
cause the issue.
Can be problematic. Yeah.
Any reason not to take responsibility, essentially.
Right, exactly. So that's, in fact, actually, that was a guy from the GT groups texting me that he got all the stuff that I sent for the event, for the auction. I sent him a Krensla for the auction.
Oh, nice.
And then some of my crazy $300 buckets.
Those buckets.
Yeah, that give me, I get in trouble for all the time.
Nice. So some of the listeners that maybe that out there that want to participate in this, that have GT cars, is there a limited number of people that can go to this, or how do they end up? How does that work out?
So the website is gt3revs.com. And then you would submit an application. They're very, very specific, and the guys have gotten pretty good about vetting people. It's not a rally, It's it's just
a get together essentially.
Yeah, we'll buddy up in packs of 10 to 14, 8 to 14, and go drive. But we've had to kick people out that are crossing over double yellow and turn it into a race event. And so it's
people that are trying to really dial it up out there, and it's
usually those are guys that are renting GT cars. Like they bought one, but they really belong in a McLaren. No, they belong in a Lamborghini. Yeah, they belong in some other car that really.
Good point.
Really some more meathead type car, and so we've had guys have to come and go. But you submit an application, and they call you and have a conversation. Say it's not that we don't want to keep this exclusive. They're basically they're looking for a certain culture.
Yeah, good for them.
And so you go there and you send them an email, and then you get in early because it sells out quickly.
I'm sure.
And then the fall event I think is more invitation type, and those fill up too pretty quickly. So if you want to get on, the organizers are Sean and Mayer, good dudes. There'd be good guys for you to have on your podcast for sure. At some point, I can introduce you to those guys.
That'd be great. I think that would,
because they're
conversation.
Porsche's involved, Michelin's now involved. HRE Wheels, so they have some pretty big sponsors that are now getting involved. Yeah, we're meeting at the Porsche Experience Center in Atlanta to kick it off. And then going to Road Atlanta. that we rent out a landing strip. So we rent out Heaven's
Nice,
Landing.
that's cool.
Just to get that out.
Get the bug out of you.
So Saturday we go and do that. Get that out of your system.
I like that.
Yeah. So that they by design have set it up to you go to the track to get that out of your system. So when we go to the mountains, don't get me wrong, we're driving.
Yeah.
We're moving.
Absolutely.
But you're moving 50.
Yeah.
But the edge is off.
Yeah.
Right. And but the turns are tight and the roads are great in the Smokies.
I like the fact that they're vetting people, and there might be guys might burn me at the cross for saying this though, but when you have an event like that and you have a lot of people around, one guy can screw everything up for everybody, and we all know who we're talking about. You always got that guy who wants to pass in that, the breakdown lane or something like that, and it's like there really isn't any place for that kind of stuff. And it goes back to our conversation we had earlier. You want to drive like that? Go to the track, man.
I mean, even at like the Heaven's Landing thing, we've had guys that just, they set up cones. This is where you're supposed to let off, and guys just stay in it. And just keep going. The one dude almost went off the edge, like locked up, all four wheels sliding.
I wonder why there are cones there.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking going like a quarter mile past the cones, full in, to try to get an extra mile an hour out of it.
There's always one guy, right? I can piss further than you. Like it's like, dude, man, that's not what we're doing. No. You want to race me to the door?
And because we'll have, I think there were 80 cars last year in spring, and now there'll be 120 or so. So there will be some that will screw it up. I'm sure
some new guys.
Yeah, some new guys that don't get it, but the vast majority, and this is just culturally in general, the Porsche community is guys that you could trust with your family, that kind of thing.
It's true. It's very
just
true.
It's
kind of neat too because we have a lot of friends that have old air-cooled cars that are in the industry that we're in too. It's like Chris from Overcast. He'll drive across the country. If something happens, he'll reach out to send a beacon out in the air-cooled Porsche community, and guys like, hey, bring your car over. I got a tranny. We'll get it in your car, get you back on the road. And I think we try to put our thumbprint on why that makes Porsche so special. I don't own a Ferrari, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, or Lamborghini, but I don't know too many Lambo or Ferrari guys. If you're driving cross country and you have a problem, they're going to throw their garage out and say, hey, you can come park your car here, and I'll climb under it with you and get you back on the road. I think most of those guys are going to say...
I think less likely.
Yeah. I think you can probably take it to the dealership, right, as the text you might get back. I don't know what you want me to do. What do you want me to do for you?
It's a different mentality. I think a lot of it is, and it comes back to personality type. I think Porsche in general is going to attract a more reserved type, engineer type C.
Yes.
Not always, but in general.
Yeah.
Because the car is more about engagement, more about driver experience than it is about just something great.
Yeah.
More your raw power, performance for money, something like that.
Yeah.
It's just, and again, not that there's anything wrong with you wanting big horsepower or big torque, or you want to there's a whole culture like the half mile guys. Have you ever been to a half mile event?
Yes.
That's a culture in and of itself.
It is.
Where those guys just they love it, and then in order to do well, you gotta have a GTR or a CTSV or
2,500 horsepower and get out of here.
And you have the all-wheel drive Lambos, that's what you need, or Supra or something like that.
Yeah.
And so that's a culture, and that's a culture that there's the rally culture, there's Ferrari culture, there's even Simply Clean or or Hella Flush, the stance movement.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of cool culture out there, but
absolutely,
I identify with Porsche and that culture.
I identify as Porsche.
Yeah, I mean, I like to think, and this isn't the case, but
my name is Matt, and I have a problem. I like Porsche.
I like to think of 911 is the mechanical version of me as a human, or what I aspire to be as a human.
It's funny you say that, because I think the same thing. I know that sounds really strange to think of myself as that, but I try to want to engineer myself like that. I just want to be as fine-tuned as I can in every aspect that I can be, right?
I know that the rear engine, the weight's off the back of the car, it's flawed from the start. I just identify with that so much, and I try to be as good as I can being so flawed. And maybe someday I could aspire to be the human embodiment of what a 911 is.
Right.
As a machine.
That's a good point, like you said earlier, and we were talking about it, where it almost kind of breaks down the barrier of perfection with the car, right? As far as like the car is perfect, obviously in our own eyes, but like, you know, the geometry and everything behind it, it really is flawed. So it kind of makes it maybe almost like that dog. It's not like genetically, you know, you go to a breeder, you get a perfect dog. It's like the perfect the perfect weight. It's got all the perfect markings, all that kind of stuff.
And it dies when it's 2.
Exactly, right?
Right.
And then this
get some mutt, right?
Exactly. You go to the pound and you saved something, and it was like the best thing you ever had in your life, right? And you're like, there's something appealing like to that, right? It has character.
Like
it's one of those
Secretariat,
things.
right? The horse that wins because it's got a heart.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's one of those things. I think, and that is a huge appeal that you brought up. I think for a lot of Porsche guys have that common bond. It's almost kind of like, despite the flaw, the car is that good.
Yep, it can be engineered out, and that's what it's been proven for the last 70 years.
Yeah, they're still winning races, and it's flawed.
Yeah, and that appeals to me. That kind of that limp, you know, that kind of that humbleness, or that humble flaw that then turns out to be just all right. Just better than all right.
I agree with that,
and that's, you know, that appeals to me, I think. So I feel at home being known as a Porsche owner.
Yeah, I do too.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel this little bit of the same way as a BMW too. So I felt a little out of place having just a Porsche.
Yeah.
So BMW is a big part of my, evolution. The weird thing is, like, I don't have that same aspiration to own Hondas.
Yeah.
Maybe because I tried it, and it's just, after being spoiled with a GT3 RS, it makes those other cars so inferior.
Yeah.
Well, you're trying so hard to even get close to where you're at, and you're
at the end of the day,
uncomfortable,
there's an engineering gap between that. I mean, there's just no other way to say it. And those cars are great for what they are, but when
it's
you're
a dollar gap,
exactly.
Yeah.
When you're searching for that pinnacle, like anything, like the products that you put together, you have to pay up for the best sometimes, and that's just the way it is. It's not about trying to price people out. There's certain things that go into those things that make that product expensive.
Right.
So essentially, where things are being cut off at a lower level and things are being skipped over, there's a reason why there's a price gap there. So
yeah, and Porsche maintains amazing margins, and I'm happy for that. I'm okay, because that affords them the ability to do these things that otherwise wouldn't exist. The current GT3 or GT cars or GT4, they wouldn't exist if they weren't profitable.
Exactly.
And so, or if like Cayennes weren't pretty profitable.
Yeah, like we talked about earlier, like, with the bottles that you have coming out, it's almost like I can't give these away. Like, it wouldn't make any sense to do that. Like, same thing with Porsche. It's like, I can't just give these to you. Like, we have to make some profit on this, like, for this to make sense for all of us. Like,
the one thing I wish they would do, again, that so it becomes a little bit, there's a line somewhere, and I think that the line has gotten skated well past with dealerships and markups and just really slimy tactics.
Yeah, it is a shame. Yep. It really is a shame.
And what happens is the cars don't end up in the enthusiast's hands. It only ends up in a few really affluent enthusiasts.
I agree.
Other than that, it ages out. Even someone like myself, I can do it, but I can't go to that.
Yeah.
Like, I can't go that extra step.
Yeah, it turns into like a principality thing, right? Like, where you're in a situation where you're like, yes, I could pay your $50,000 dealer markup on this, but I won't, because that doesn't make sense. Like, I know
the car already has $60,000 in markup.
Exactly.
At some point, you got to draw the line, and it's frustrating because I'm a big free market capitalist guy. Let the market dictate, but when the game is rigged, it's just frustrating, man.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, then they have all the rules to the game, right? So they're holding all the cards, and then they're telling you what's going to happen. That's not really a fair fight for anybody on the other side of that fence, because they're like, well, I've got 10 allocations. I got, 10 guys willing to give me 50,000 over sticker. Now I'm going to call those 10 guys again and tell them I've got somebody who wants to give me 75,000 over sticker.
So you still want in?
Are you still a player now? Yep. And it's like, come on, man, you're gonna get. I already committed to that. Now you're gonna put me against the fence?
It's total crap.
Yeah.
And then it's just accepted because it gets paid. And then now that's the new.
Well,
norm.
the problem is there's the next man up, right? They're like, if you do hold your ground and you take, you're like, you know what, enough is enough. I'm going to bow out.
And
Well,
just
then
move
there's
on,
somebody else will raise their hand and say, I'll be that guy. I'll do it then. I'll pay the 100 over sticker. I'll pay the 200 over sticker. Like, yeah.
Yeah, that's frustrating that they have that card.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's good from their business perspective as Porsche. Obviously, big Porsche is not in control of that. It's the dealers doing it. It's not big Porsche doing it. And we kind of touched on it a little bit on our last episode. Like, I think Porsche actually has come out and said it, that not necessarily they're going to make as many GT cars as anybody wants, but they have said there's not going to be a shortage. You're not going to have to be out there being gouged by these dealerships. So big Porsche has found a way around the dealerships to say, you guys are going to stop scumbagging people, because when they come in to order it, you guys maybe only had 10 allocations last year. Well, now you have 50 allocations at each dealership. And so everybody in your area wants one, they can have one.
I think the key for me is going to be just to get off of the front of the wave and just follow the secondary wave.
Yeah.
And stop trying to, but I so enjoy the building it to my spec, and I generally want some different stuff than what most people do.
That's part of the fun.
Yeah.
So that's how I ended up with a car with yellow stitching. I'm not a yellow stitching kind of guy.
Yeah, exactly.
And I would never have chosen that, and I don't want it.
Something you made me think of. You could also talk to Ray when you go to PEC Atlanta, and he's in their sports car, the Classic Center, and they can recommission something. So if you got your 964 and you wanted it exactly the way they wanted it, and they could just recommission it the way you perfection from the factory. I mean, that's an option for you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to cost you obviously, but
sure.
But then it's Porsche.
That's
through
true.
And through.
And it comes with another thing we talked to them about too is they're the only ones in the world that can legally roll back the odometer.
Yeah.
And make it a brand new car. They can actually retitle it. It's like brand new. Yep. They're the only ones in the world that can do it.
Yeah, that's what they did with the oak green metallic Carrera GT.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting that's out there. So, anybody who's out there that has the means or the funds or wants to go through that process, PEC Atlanta Classic Division is the one that does that.
Well, there's a market for that, for sure.
Yeah. And like you said, like there's plenty of affluent people that they don't want to go through that. Maybe they want it as they may have ordered it. Like you said, I would not have spec'd that car that way.
Yeah.
Well, for them to walk into the Classic dealership and actually spec a 964 as it's like 1990, I mean, how could you do that? Like that's insane that you could do that.
It exists now.
Yeah, that is cool. I like that. I want that.
Yeah.
But then I'd want to chop it up.
Yeah.
Modify it.
Well, I mean, they did some crazy stuff on the Carrera GT. I mean, the plating, the silver plating, the wheels are actually pure silver, and then the gold, because that's what they got the gold to attach to, and the carbon fiber is all original. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, they couldn't dip them because of the magnesium. The gold wouldn't adhere to the magnesium, so they dipped them in silver just so they could get to paint them gold.
Yikes.
Yeah.
That's pretty sick. Did you guys go up there and visit?
We saw them in Amelia.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. And they're explaining what they're capable of doing.
Yeah. It's
Ray
pretty
walked
cool.
us through it.
Yeah, so I think the way to go is to just avoid the dealer altogether and just buy used cars.
Yeah, I'm with that too.
There's so many of them now that there's so many dudes that put like 800 miles on them, and and what happens is, like, again, you want to go buy a .1 RS and a 991.1 RS, you could buy it for 170 grand, 160 grand, a 220,000 sticker car that was selling for 280 at one point or 290. You can buy for 160, 170.
Insane, and it's a monster of a car.
Yep.
Yeah. And so the .2s, same thing will happen when the 992s come out, and the .2s, because they did twice as many .2s as they did the .1.
I saw that.
So there's a boatload, maybe even more than twice, and so there'll be a boatload of those just flooding. Yep. And so I'll just stay behind the wave and not play the game.
Yep. I mean, that's usually the best way to do it, is just separate yourself from the game so you're not in it.
Or then I just try to get super rich, and then I can just pay the $50K.
There you go.
I mean, there's the other hand,
Yeah. And then just just hand the dealer your money, right?
Yeah, we talked about that. It really doesn't matter how much money you have. Wasting money.
Yeah.
Generally, people who have lots of money aren't all that into wasting it.
No,
'Cause that's
it's a
how you
principle
keep it.
thing. It's not even just about can you do it. It's just it doesn't make sense. Even if you have millions and millions of dollars, it's like, why should I give you an extra $100,000 over what the sticker is on the car just so I can buy the car from you? The car's already expensive.
Right. With plenty of margin.
Exactly.
Yeah, that frustrates the heck out of me. I've gotten a little less frustrated as time has gone on, and I've become a little more content.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to get a .1 RS when it was new, and I couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the lines were out the door. In fact,
Yeah.
I have $5,000 up in the Ocala dealership. I got to go get. I put down to get a .2.
Yeah.
And they either they got one and didn't give it to me, or they just didn't get one.
Yeah. And it could be, both. Who knows? Yeah. But I don't really have anything else. I know we went kind of long. You have anything from Matt?
No, you answered all my questions.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, this was fun. I appreciate you guys
This is great.
having me on.
Yeah. Thank you for taking the time, actually. I know you're a super busy guy, and this was super fun.
I'm going to go home and I got to wash the 1M, and I'm doing a wash and talk.
Nice.
And then I'm headed out to Monterey to a Obsessed Garage group of guys getting together to do a drive.
Cool.
Yeah.
I love Monterey. We were out there for Rensport last year.
Yeah, never been there.
You got to go to the next one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody tells me I got to get out there to that.
Yeah.
Especially-
I'll organize a trip. I'll text you, and we'll all,
right.
we'll all go out there together. We'll all rent a house, and we'll go out there together.
Yeah, especially if I'm talking air cool, then I got to get there, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly right.
What's the other one? Is there something? I'm thinking Radwood. That's like
Radwood.
90s.
Yeah, the
90s
90s
stuff.
cars.
Yeah.
Luftacult is next month. That's an air-cooled show, all Porsche air-cooled, held by Patrick Long, race car driver.
Where's that?
That is in
It's gonna be in LA.
L.A.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I guess I'd have to start getting into it then.
yeah.
I
We'll
don't
rub
know.
off on you. You're back-to-back 964s at your place. Not
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It's
It's only a
like,
matter of time.
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm gonna get my own stinky old
That's
old
right.
Porsche.
That's right. Dirty laundry. I like to say. I like how you said that.
I'm
You're
gonna
like,
have
yeah,
to
I'm gonna buy somebody's old dirty laundry.
De-stinky it. Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool.
Well, thanks for your time, Matt, and that's all we have. Thank you guys for listening.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
See ya.
See you guys.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Pcartalk. Connect with us on Instagram at Pcartalk or online at Pcartalk.com.